Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the last video of my 2021 review series. That's it! I talked about everything I wanted to talk about, which was probably way more than you wanted to know anyway. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talking about all of these. Now that this is the final video, I would love to know from you, is there anything that you would have loved if I would have added it? Is there a specific thing you would have loved if I would have talked about it? Is there anything that I should do different for next year? Now is your chance to comment down below and let me know. For the new release video, I'm focusing again on fantasy and sci-fi. I read a total of, I think it was 30 new releases over the year, and 13 of those were specifically for fantasy and sci-fi. So no worries, I'm not going to talk about 30 books, it's going to be 13 only, which is already a lot of books to talk about in one video since I can never shut up. So let's start. And I'm going in the order of how much I liked them. So I'm going from liked the least to liked the most. And on the top, you probably find some that you recognize from other parts of my series. Let's start with number 13, and that would be The Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. And that was a cover buy for me. And the thing is, when I read the flab, it sounded really interesting, but I was already kind of like, let's see if that is not too YA for me. And that's unfortunately what it turned out being. I read the book back in June. I could not DNF it because I was in that readathon and DNF books didn't count. So I soldiered through it, and man, I should get an award for that. But listen, it is an interesting premise. For me, the writing style was just too young and the main character was way too immature for what I usually like. And I think it's actually really close to Sarah J. Maas, which I personally also thought was too young from a writing perspective, and the main character, there were a lot of other flaws. But if you like the writing style from Sarah J. Maas, you might actually enjoy Blade of Secrets. But it is an interesting story with the main character who deals with anxiety and tries to overcome that as part of a rather traditional fantasy story. It was just not for me, but the cover is gorgeous. Book number 12 has to be Empire of the Vampire. That was actually a DNF for me, but I read about 100 pages of the book. Yeah, that didn't go over well. So Jay Kristoff is definitely not an author that I will continue reading. I actually did a review because I found some of the things that he wrote and some of the things that the main character said so unbelievably bad that I had to talk with someone about it. I apologize. I know this is a rather unpopular opinion. I know it has a really high rating on Goodreads. Don't get used to that. I don't want to do negative reviews because I don't think authors or books actually deserve it. But some of the writing was just so weird. It just didn't work for me. Let's just put it that way. All right, the next book I still have here, and the rating goes up significantly going forward, and that is The Bone-Shot Emperor, which is book 2 in the Drowning Empire series. It was good. I didn't like it too much. I think it needed another review by an editor. The things that I really liked about book 1, unfortunately, didn't really continue in book 2. It's more a plot book than a character development or world building book, I'd say, to book 2. Still a good read. I definitely want to continue the series. I definitely enjoyed the magic system. That was the one part that really intrigued me to continue with book 2 and kept me going, is more detail on the very quirky magic system that is part of this story. And I'm definitely excited for book 3 in the series. Book number 10 on my list is Lore by Alexandra Bracken, and I had the original copy, but I moved it on as part of my Sisterhood of the Traveling Book Box because I really enjoyed it. It's more an YA urban fantasy based on Greek mythology. I really enjoyed it. I just know I won't read it again. This was a really quick, fun read. I love the cover. Again, it was one of those cover buys. Was it the perfect book? I don't think so. But I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the adjacent story to the Greek mythology. I don't know if it really used a lot of Greek mythology asides characters' names and some minor details. Fun book to read. YA urban fantasy. Something that I don't read very often, but it was interesting. Right after Lore comes Body Scout, and that is actually a book that I picked up through NetGalley. While I liked it, also one of those that I don't think I will read again, mainly because it feels more a thriller in a futuristic setting. I know it is sold as sci-fi, but it has a lot of thriller elements in there. And, you know, once you discovered what was going on, it was kind of those, okay, I don't think it would make sense to read it again. Very entertaining though. I really enjoyed the whole concept on more body parts and you need to get better and better and better and augment yourself as a human. Very well written, really well fleshed out plot, I thought. There's not a whole lot of world building or character development, and it's a standalone, which is always a good thing. Book number 8 is going to be Remote Control by Nedi Okorafor, and I apologize, I should have looked up how to pronounce your last name. And that came out pretty early in 2021, and I really loved it. And that's more an African folklore-based book. Really short, really quick read. I really enjoyed the journey with the main character that all of a sudden is thrown into a situation, thrown out of her protected kid world where mom and dad are very protective of her, and now all of a sudden she has to survive on her own with abilities that she doesn't really understand where they're coming from or why she has them or whatnot. I like the writing style. I like that African folklore base of the story, and I again really enjoyed the capabilities and the thoughts and just the growth of our main character. Beasts and Beauty is my book number 7, and that is a middle grade fairy tale retellings type of book. Weird way of saying this. This book contains 12 short stories that all align with typical fairy tales that, you know, like Rapunzel or Hansel and Gretel or even Bluebeard, Peter Pan. And what the author does, and again, I apologize, I'm not even trying to pronounce that last name. He took those fairy tales that we all know and moved them into today's world. So he diversified it, essentially. And not only that, but he also changed the story. So now the princess can save herself. She doesn't have to wait for the prince to, you know, protect her from the evils in the world. He also used characters from other cultures to represent those stories. As an example, Hansel and Gretel is using people from India to represent that story. Another story has Asian main characters, and so on and so on. It's really interesting. That was actually the last book that I read in 2021, and I really enjoyed the writing style. It was fun. I didn't enjoy all the 12 stories. I definitely had my favorite in here, but it was something that I did not expect. First of all, from the book itself, and then also I didn't expect enjoying it as much as I did. We are over the halftime, and we're now moving upwards. And book 6 has to be Kristen Britton's Winterlight. It was just good. I was excited. I was waiting, 5 years? And boy, was that a wild ride. No pun intended. Well, actually it is. Oh my goodness. So if you've read Green Rider at all, and if you have followed along with this series, book 7 is everything we wanted and not at the same time. It was just good. This is not necessarily my favorite book in this series, but it's definitely one that was highly anticipated and did not disappoint in the least. I'm covering book 5 and 4 in the same number, and if you've watched my top 5 sci-fi and fantasy, now you will start recognizing some of the books, so I'll go through the rest a little bit quicker. But book 5 is going to be Death Rider, the prequel novella of the Gunmetal God series, and book 4 is going to be Conqueror's Blood. Both came out in 2021. The novella was actually just an extra for the authors, Samuel Actor's newsletter subscribers, but I loved it so much that I also got the paperback copy, and then Conqueror's Blood I already had laying here, so yeah, because when I started reading Gunmetal Gods in the summer, I ordered Conqueror's Blood immediately, and I finally caught on where we are right now. There's still a third book in the making. I've talked about that a couple of times in my wrap-ups and in my top 5 as well. It is a really dark, Middle Eastern-inspired fantasy story. Book 2 is even better than book 1. I loved the 2 main characters that we were following along in Conqueror's Blood, and I really enjoyed, actually, this novella as well. If you like dark stuff that is very descriptive and that has all the trigger warnings, definitely go check it out if that was not clear from any of my other videos quite yet. Coming to book 3, and be prepared for a really gorgeous cover as well. A Radical Act of Free Magic. That is book 2 in the Shadows Histories Duology. This is a very slow-paced historical fantasy, is I think what that subgenre is called, which is a retelling. So book 1 is more the French Revolution, and book 2 is more a retelling of the Napoleonic Wars. And it's fantastic. And then my book 2 and 1 are sci-fi picks. And we're starting with Machinehood, a book that I think is criminally underrated. It is a fantastic sci-fi standalone, people. Standalone. It's not a series, it's a standalone. Again, I keep it short because I talked about it in my top 5 already. I have a separate review for that you can watch, and I highly recommend it. Actually, I don't know if I told that, if I talked about that in my review, but that was a book that I saw on the bookshelf and I completely walked by, but thankfully my husband picked it up. He read the blurb and said, hey, you should give this book a try. It sounds really good. And boy, was he right. And then my final 2021 release, my number 1 has to be Project Hail Mary, because I enjoyed it so much I read it twice in 2021. I read it physically, and then later on, like a month later or 1.5 months later, I listened to the audiobook, and it was both fantastic and it's just great. I mean, I don't know how often I can say that this is great. If you're one of those people who bought it and did not pick it up yet, throw that on the top of your TBR. It is well worth it. It is just a fantastic story. And there's something happening in here that I cannot say. Even the trope would be a spoiler. Perfect. Perfect. It is just great execution, great writing, incredibly entertaining. I cannot wait for the movie of this. Yeah, just read it. Seriously, if you have this at home, stop everything and read it. What are some 2021 releases that you picked up this year? Definitely tell me down below in the comments. I want to know what you enjoyed, what books came out last year that you truly enjoyed and that you loved reading. That's it with my 2021 review series, 2022 preview, 2021 review, whatever. That's the last video. That's it. Are you going to miss it? We can now go back to our normal schedule, have a book review every now and then. Thanks so much for joining me in this journey. That was the first time that I did a complete review of a year, and that was actually the first year where I tracked everything as meticulously as I did. I never had an Excel spreadsheet for my reading before. But I have to say, this is really fun. I love looking back at, okay, what did I accomplish? And, what are the things that I read? What were the things that I really enjoyed versus not? And get a better idea of who I am as a reader as well. I hope it was as entertaining for you. And if you enjoyed the books that I talked about in my series, feel free to subscribe, because going forward, I will talk about very similar books and I will have more book reviews again and go into more depth of what certain books are about, how the writing style is, and etc., etc. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Till then, have a great rest of your day.